All right, we're talking with Ed Radzinski, the track and field coach for Dallas area. We're talking about Hunter Picavage. Hunter Picavage is a junior in the fall. Talked to Hunter. He's like, listen, seventh grade, just thinking about maybe I'll throw the shot put around a little bit, run around a little bit. Talk a little bit about your recollection with Hunter when he was like a young student athlete there in junior high, and just kind of remembering him a little bit.
Yeah, I remember in seventh grade him not so much with the shot put, but the javelin. I do remember him throwing 133 feet, and of course they throw the girls' javelin. It's not like the old days where they threw the same jab all the way up, but I just remember he had a lot of ability to throw 133 to 140 as a seventh grader, and you knew the potential was there. But I did remember seeing him throwing discus too in the shot put, so you knew that where we're at now, that was kind of going to be the expectation.
At one point, I said to him, and you'll appreciate this, I said, he's like, Coach Rad kind of sat me down, or I said, once Coach Rad gets his meat hooks into you, I said, you're in trouble. Just much like Mendola, I say, he'll get all over you. But, talk a little bit about that memory for you when he kind of started to take it seriously.
Well, I remember the talk was, and I don't like to say this, the kids that say, well, if you do this, and that, it could lead to something really big. But you got to watch those talks because you don't want to brainwash kids. Because I don't want to say names or anything, but sometimes it happens. Coaches get carried away, and I understand that. It's part of the process. But I wanted to tell them, potentially, and I know you're a good football player, you're a good wrestler, but with track, I said, this could take you places too. I said, when you start doing well with javelin, I said, you start getting in the 180s, 190s, there's going to be people that are going to come knocking on your door. It's just the way it is. That's just the nature of the beast. As a sophomore, of course, the college coaches can't talk to you until June 15th. But since June 15th, he started to see something, and he's getting recognition now. He's getting more recognition. Anyway, I knew the potential was there. We were kind of stuck in those 150s, 160s with the jab, and then we started doing some other things, and then it started really taking off. And I knew it was there. And as soon as that happened, I tell you what, he just took off. He took off with his potential. He took off with his confidence. And that was a big thing with his confidence. He needed that, and then he started seeing results. And he started beating some kids that were pretty good, and he said, hey, I belong here.
A little bit of a nervous kid. He's like, hey, I got a little nervous before throws. I said, I started asking him about setting that tone and that atmosphere when he goes to some of these big meets. Talk about having those conversations. And again, everybody's got a personality, but making him kind of perform at a high level like he was able to do at Javelin Fest.
Yeah, and I think part of that, and me, is we go to some big meets because of those reasons. I like to get the young kids involved with these bigger meets because it'll help down the road. And at the time, they don't necessarily understand that, but now as they get older, they realize, hey, those meets are helping us a lot to build our confidence and not be so nervous in these kind of meets. Now he's throwing against some really top caliber javelin guys, and he feels now that, hey, I'm beating these guys, or I'm at least rubbing elbows with them here, and you know what? I'm belonging. I'm starting to fit into the picture here. So, yeah, he get a little nervous there, but now he's starting to realize, hey, I can do this.
The balance, you got Manolo, you got yourself, strong, personalities, but guys who kind of know their program, know what they're doing. He also does some training of fame strength, so he's got a lot of things going on. Talk about a kid. You feel like this kid kind of takes it all in and is able to balance it?
Yeah, he is, and Richie Mendola and I, we're good friends, and Richie, we're those, like you said, we're those kind of alpha coaches where it's, you want a lot out of your athletes, but Richie also realizes that track does a lot for the football guys too. He realizes that. So, and he balances, like you said, wrestling, fame, and I'll tell you what, I like the fact that he goes to fame because he gets extra work in there, and you know what? The javelin's not something you pick up and just do it for 3 months. Kids that are really good, they're realizing I need to be working on this throughout the year. And now he's realizing I need to be working on it throughout the year, so he understands that concept.
I asked him this question, but coming from you, it might be a little bit different as far as what it looks like, because you don't want to overdo it, but he's going to be getting into football season here. It's almost August.
Right.
I said to him, what does it look like for the javelin for you from now till January? He's like, well, I want to keep throwing because I want to keep staying at a high level. How does that balance work with football and javelin, where you don't want a kid to overdo it and get injured, but you'd like to kind of keep him fresh, where maybe he's getting some throws in or band work or whatever that is.
Right. Well, obviously, competition-wise, it's winding down now, so you're not going to see meets per se. But as far as the training goes, it's going to be some stuff, like you said, working on bands. He's going to be doing his lifting for football, so I'm not worried about that. Now, there's specific lifts for the javelin that I can certainly give him to do and teach and stuff like that. As far as bands and flexibility, his big thing about flexibility, I keep telling him, flexibility. I said, the thing with the javelin is, you go to certain places in the world and you go there, they'll stretch for 40 minutes before they pick up that stick. And he's understanding that concept more and more now. So he said to me, Coach, we're going to these meets, I see people, they're not even stretching. I said, exactly. I said, we're over there stretching, they're looking at us like we have 3 heads. So he's understanding that process of that. So things like that, he's going to be able to do. As far as me, per se, being one-on-one with them, it's not going to be a lot of that, because I understand how demanding football is. But there's going to be spots here and there where he can do stuff and then do stuff on his own, certainly.
He had spoke about, stretching out, getting that bead to sweat going and so forth. But talk about, not every athlete you ever coach is a sponge, and he seems like he is a sponge, and which is a credit to him and his family. And obviously, you love working with those kind of kids.
He's a sponge. Again, as a 9th grader, he was all over the place. Now you see that maturation process, and he asks a lot of questions. He remembers things. He doesn't forget it. That's why he's seeing the fruits of his labor now, and he's going to continue to get better. People ask him, how far do you think he can throw? I think he can throw 220. I do. I'm not saying right now, but I think down the road he could throw 220, 225. And I don't like to throw numbers out like that, because people remember, they're like, oh, but you said. But I'm just saying, I think potentially he's that kind of kid.
Well, he's put together well. You said he's 200 pounds?
He said he's 200 pounds. Yeah, and he's like, there's no fat on him. He's probably 4% body fat or something. I don't know. He's low body fat.
Yeah, he looks lean. He looks good. I guess he's ready to go for football, but a great track and field season. Coach, we appreciate your time joining us here at McCarthy Tire.
You're welcome. Thank you so much, John.